Captain Elias Grant had traveled many lonely paths among the stars, but this one felt different. His small exploration ship, the Horizon, drifted near the edge of known space, far from trade routes and colonies. He was used to silence, but now, the silence felt heavier, almost alive. His scanners had caught a faint signal, weak and broken, coming from an abandoned station hidden in the orbit of a dead moon. Most explorers would have ignored it. Elias did not. He was a man who believed that every signal carried a story, and stories were worth chasing. The station floated in darkness, its hull scarred by old battles. Lights flickered only in patches, as if the place was trying to remember it once had life. Elias docked his ship carefully, his eyes scanning the readouts. Oxygen levels were low but still breathable. Life signs, 2 of them, faint but steady. That caught his attention immediately. For years he had seen derelicts filled only with silence. Finding survivors here felt impossible, but the scanner did not lie. He entered the station, his boots echoing against empty metal halls. Dust floated in the air, glowing in the thin rays of emergency light. The deeper he went, the stronger the feeling of being watched grew. Finally, he reached a sealed chamber. The door was old, but the power lock still worked. Through a small glass panel, Elias saw them, 2 figures curled inside containment cells. They were not human. Their skin held a soft glow, almost like starlight pressed into flesh. Their eyes were large, shining faintly even in the dark. They looked young, maybe sisters, maybe twins. One of them, the smaller one, stirred when she noticed Elias. Her hands pressed weakly against the glass. "Please." Her voice trembled through the comm system, distorted but clear. "Help us." Elias froze. He had expected corpses, not voices. The taller sister raised her head next, her gaze sharp and silent. Unlike the younger one, she did not beg. She only stared at him with eyes that carried both hope and warning. Elias's instincts flared. Something about this felt wrong. Why were they locked away? Who had left them here? Still, his heart leaned toward compassion. No one deserved to be forgotten inside a dead station. He tried the console beside the cells. The system demanded authorization codes he did not have, but Elias had learned long ago that locks, no matter how advanced, were made to be broken. His fingers flew across the controls, rerouting power, bypassing failed circuits. Sparks leapt as he forced the system to obey. Slowly, the locks released and the doors to the cells slid open. The younger sister stepped out first, stumbling as her legs struggled with freedom. Elias caught her before she fell. She was light, almost too light, like she had been drained of strength for years. Her eyes met his, wide with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. The older sister followed, standing tall despite her weakness. She said nothing, but her eyes studied Elias carefully as if measuring his worth. He nodded to her. "You're safe now. I'll take you to my ship. We'll get out of here." They leaned on him as he guided them back through the hollow corridors. The younger one spoke softly as they walked. Her name was Lyra. The older was Saris. They were sisters, yes, and they had been here for a long time. Lyra's words came in fragments, broken by exhaustion. She said raiders had attacked their world. They had been captured, locked away in this place, and left to die. Saris corrected her once or twice, changing small details, but then fell silent again. Elias noticed, but he did not press. He could ask later, when they were safe. At last, they reached the Horizon. The ship's clean, bright interior felt like sunlight compared to the cold ruin they left behind. Elias set Lyra in the medical chair, scanning her for injuries, malnutrition, weakness, but nothing his ship could not heal. Saris refused the scanner at first, but then allowed it with a cold nod. She was stronger than Lyra, though her eyes hinted at years of heavy silence. As the ship undocked, the derelict station faded behind them into the void. Elias felt a surge of pride. He had done the right thing. He had found life, where no one expected it. He had saved 2 sisters from a forgotten grave, yet a small voice inside his mind whispered doubt. If they were only victims, why had they been locked away with such advanced security? Why had no one come for them? Lyra smiled faintly at him, her glowing eyes filled with warmth. "You saved us," she said again. Elias returned the smile, though unease tugged at him. "That's what humans do," he replied. "We don't leave people behind." Saris's gaze lingered on him for a long moment. She finally spoke, her voice calm and unreadable. "We will see." The words hung in the air as the horizon sailed into the stars, carrying not just two rescued sisters, but also the beginning of a mystery that would test Elias far more than he imagined. The horizon glided through silent space, its engines humming like a steady heartbeat. Inside, Captain Elias Grant moved between the controls and the small lounge where his two rescued passengers rested. He told himself he had done the right thing, yet the weight of responsibility pressed on him. Two strangers, two alien sisters, were now under his care, and though their faces were calm, something about them stirred questions he could not easily answer. Lyra, the younger sister, had quickly filled the quiet with her voice. She spoke with wonder about everything on the ship, the blinking lights, the sound of the engines, the taste of the rehydrated food Elias gave her. All of it amazed her. She leaned forward in the chair, asking endless questions about humans, about Earth, about why Elias was traveling alone in such a large galaxy. Elias found himself smiling at her curiosity. "Exploration," he answered simply. "Humans want to know what's out there. We travel because we don't like being kept in one place." Lyra's eyes glowed warmly. "That sounds free." "We were never free, not until you came." Her words touched him, and yet when he glanced toward Saris, the older sister, his smile faded. Saris sat apart, her back straight, her eyes fixed on the stars outside the viewport. She rarely spoke, and when she did, her words carried a sharp edge. If Lyra was soft light, Saris was a shadow that refused to move. "Where exactly were you before I found you?" Elias asked one evening, as the ship drifted between jumps. Lyra opened her mouth quickly. "We were prisoners. Raiders destroyed our home. They captured us and left us there to die." But Saris interrupted, her voice calm and firm. "That is not the whole truth." Lyra turned to her sister with a frown, but Saris did not continue. Instead, she looked at Elias, her silver eyes meeting his. "You should not trust stories too easily, Captain." The words unsettled him more than he cared to admit. Still, he forced a chuckle. "Well, I don't trust easily. That's why I'm still alive." But in the quiet that followed, the doubt returned. If the sisters truly were victims, why did their versions of the story not match? Over the next few days, Elias began to notice small things. The ship's system sometimes flickered when the sisters were near. Lights dimmed, monitors flashed with static, and once the entire navigation panel reset itself while Saris walked past. Elias checked the circuits again and again, but found nothing wrong. The horizon had never failed him before. Another time, he woke in the middle of the night to a low hum echoing through the walls. He followed the sound to the lounge where he saw Lyra sitting cross-legged on the floor. Her hands glowed faintly, strands of light weaving between her fingers like threads of energy. She gasped when she noticed him and quickly pulled her hands behind her back. "I was only remembering," she said softly. Elias wanted to ask what she meant, but her eyes looked so fragile that he let the question fade. Still, he could not forget the sight of energy bending to her will. The days stretched on. Lyra grew stronger, walking the ship with new energy, laughing at small things Elias said. Saris, however, remained distant. Sometimes he caught her studying him, her gaze sharp as if she was trying to read not just his words but his very thoughts. Once, when he offered her food, she said simply, "You help us because you think it makes you noble. But what will you do when helping us brings danger?" Elias had no answer. The turning point came when the ship's sensors picked up a faint signal trailing them. A cluster of ships moving fast, closing the distance. Elias adjusted the readings, his jaw tightening. Raiders. The very name made Lyra, shiver and cling to his arm. Saris only narrowed her eyes, her face unreadable. "They found us," Lyra whispered. Elias's hands tightened around the controls. "If they're hunting you, then we'll stay ahead of them. The whore. Izon isn't a warship, but she can run fast when she needs to." He pushed the engines harder, but the feeling in his chest grew heavier. The raiders were not simply hunting random prey. They were hunting the sisters. And the strange truth was clear in the way the sisters reacted. Lyra's fear was genuine, yet Saris's calmness was unnatural, almost as if she had expected this. That night, as the ship drifted in stealth mode, hiding from the pursuing fleet, Elias sat alone in the cockpit. He stared at the starfield, his thoughts restless. He had wanted to believe he had saved 2 innocents, but every day revealed new mysteries. The glowing hands, the shifting stories, the silence of Saris, and the strange reaction of the ship itself. Behind him, the door slid open. Saris stood in the dim light, her eyes fixed on him. "You should not have freed us," she said quietly. Elias turned, his chest tightening. "Then tell me why. Tell me the truth." Saris's gaze did not waver. "The truth will come to you, soon enough. And when it does, you will regret this choice." She turned and left, her footsteps vanishing into the corridor. Elias sat frozen, staring after her, the words echoing in his mind. The horizon moved on through the endless dark, carrying not just 3 travelers, but a storm waiting to break. The horizon cut through space like a small spark in the dark. Elias had kept the engines at full burn for hours, trying to outrun the signals that haunted the scanners. But no matter how far he pushed, the raiders were still behind them. They were careful, never coming too close, never falling too far, always keeping the same distance, like hunters who knew their prey had nowhere to hide. Elias leaned over the console, his jaw tight. "They're hurting us," he muttered. Lyra sat beside him, her glowing eyes wide with fear. "They will take us back. That's what they always do." Elias placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Not while I'm here. They'll have to go through me first." From the back of the cockpit, Saris's voice cut through the tension. "You should not make promises you cannot keep, Captain." Elias turned sharply toward her. "If you know something I don't, then say it." But Saris only crossed her arms, her face calm and unreadable. "You will see soon enough." Before Elias could answer, alarms filled the ship. The scanners lit up, 5 raider ships dropping out of warp, forming a half circle around the horizon. They did not open fire immediately. Instead, a comm signal blinked on the screen. Elias accepted the call. The face of a raider commander appeared, scarred and grim. His voice carried the weight of command and warning. "Human vessel, you are carrying 2 dangerous fugitives. Release them at once, and you will be allowed to leave unharmed." Elias frowned. "Dangerous fugitives? They're just 2 sisters you abandoned to die." The commander's eyes burned with anger. "You have no idea what you have done. Those 2 are not victims, they are threats beyond your understanding. Give them up, or your ship will be destroyed." Lyra gasped, shaking her head. "No, he's lying. They are monsters, not protectors. They locked us away like animals." She turned to Elias, clutching his arm. "Please, don't believe him." Elias's heart pounded. He had expected greed from raiders, not fear. Their commander looked less like a captor and more like a soldier begging for reason. For a moment, Elias felt the ground shift beneath him. Which side was telling the truth? But he had already made his choice. "I don't hand over people who ask for my help," Elias said firmly. "If you want them, you'll have to fight me." The commander's jaw tightened. "So be it. But their blood will not be the only blood spilled today." The transmission cut, and the raiders moved. The horizon shook as energy blasts struck. Its shields. Sparks flew across the cockpit, and Elias threw the ship into evasive maneuvers. The small vessel darted between the larger raiders, weaving through lines of fire like a leaf in a storm. The ship was fast, but every hit drained the shield power. "Lyra, strap in," Elias shouted. Lyra obeyed, gripping the seat tightly, her glowing eyes darting nervously. "They'll destroy us." But Saris did not sit. She stood behind Elias, calm even as the ship rocked under heavy fire. Her eyes glowed faintly as she watched the battle unfold. "You cannot outrun them. Not like this," Elias snapped back. "Then what do you suggest? Waving a white flag?" "No," Sarah said simply. "Let us show you why they fear us." Her words sent a chill down his spine. He remembered the glow in Lyra's hands, the strange way the ship flickered around them. Now Saris was offering the same answer, the one the raiders seemed to dread most. Elias gritted his teeth, torn between fear and survival. Another blast rocked the horizon, nearly throwing them all to the floor. Systems were failing. If he did nothing, the ship would be space dust within minutes. Finally, Elias growled, "Fine, but you do it my way. No killing unless there's no other choice." Saris gave no promise, but she placed a hand on the wall of the ship. At once, the lights flickered. The hum of the engines deepened, vibrating through the deck. Energy surged through the horizon, and suddenly the scanner showed a strange spike of power radiating from within the ship itself. Out in space, the raiders hesitated. Their ship slowed, as if they could feel the change. "Lyra," Saris said, quietly. Together. Lyra hesitated, fear trembling in her voice. "Sister, if we lose control, we will not," Saris said sharply. "We cannot." The younger sister closed her eyes and her hands began to glow. Elias could feel the air itself grow heavier, charged with strange energy. The horizon systems, once failing, now surged with new strength. The engines roared like thunder, shields flared brighter, and weapons he had never installed lit up on his console. Elias stared in shock. "What are you doing to my ship?" Lyra's voice was faint, strained. "Not your ship. Us. We are giving her our power." Outside, the horizon turned from prey to predator. Bolts of energy fired from its cannons, striking the raider ships with unnatural precision. One raider shield collapsed instantly. Another ship was sent spinning away. The rest scrambled, caught between fear and duty. The comm channel opened again, the raider commander's voice filled with desperation. "Human, listen to me. You don't understand what you've unleashed. Those sisters cannot control what they are. If you let them keep using their power, you will all burn." Elias clenched his fists on the controls, his eyes flicking between the sisters and the battle outside. The horizon blazed with power, but his heart was caught in doubt. The raiders spoke with fear. The sisters fought with desperation. Which truth was real? The battle raged on, but Elias knew one thing for certain. The storm he had stepped into was far greater than a fight between raiders and refugees. It was the beginning of something much larger. The horizon floated in the eerie calm after the battle, but Elias Grant could feel that peace was only temporary. The raiders had retreated for now, shaken by the sisters' sudden display of power. The ship's hull still trembled from impacts, and systems flickered under the strain of energy they had never carried before. Elias sat in the cockpit, gripping the controls, his mind racing. Lyra slumped in the medical chair, exhausted, her glow dim but steady. She whispered softly, Did we win?" Sarah stood nearby, her eyes scanning the instruments, her expression unreadable. Elias turned to her, voice tense. "Enough hiding, you have to tell me the truth. What are you really capable of?" Saris's silver eyes met his, calm but sharp. She took a deep breath as if preparing herself. "You need to understand, Captain. We were never meant to be free. The raiders, what they are called, are not kidnappers or simple criminals. They are guardians, tasked with keeping us contained. For centuries, we were locked away because our power is dangerous." Elias blinked. "Dangerous how?" Saris's gaze softened slightly, though a warning remained in her eyes. "We are not like ordinary beings. Lyra, we can bend energy, manipulate matter, even change the environment around us. When we were young, control came slowly. The first time we lost control, entire fleets were destroyed. Planets were nearly scarred. The raiders They were the only ones strong enough to keep us restrained until we learned to control ourselves. Elias felt his stomach tighten. He had assumed he had rescued innocents, but he was not dealing with ordinary aliens. These were living weapons. You mean all those things you did in the ship, the shields, the weapons? Yes, Saris said softly. That is a fraction of our true strength. And that is why they were so terrified, not greedy. They knew the moment we were free, we could be a force the galaxy could not contain. Lyra's small hands trembled as she tried to lift them. I didn't mean to. Saris put a hand on her sister's shoulder, grounding her. I know, Lyra. That is why we stayed locked away. But now that we are free, we must choose. Control our power or let it destroy everything we touch. Elias sank back into the captain's chair, his head in his hands. So, I didn't save 2 sisters. I released 2 weapons into space. Saris shook her head. We are still sisters, but the galaxy sees only what we can do. The Raiders never lied. They warned you for a reason. They knew you would try to protect us, and they knew your human morality would be tested. Elias looked up, determination building in his chest. Then we don't run. We learn. We control this together. Saris studied him, reading the fire in his eyes. You are different from others we have met, human. Most would have panicked, abandoned us, or attempted to destroy us out of fear. You chose to trust us, even knowing the danger. That is why we may succeed. Lyra lifted her head, exhausted, but hopeful. Captain, will you help us? Elias nodded. We will learn together. You may be dangerous, but I won't let that make you monsters. If you can control your power, we can prove that the galaxy doesn't have to fear you. Saris allowed a faint smile. Perhaps your way is stronger than confinement. Fear may control others, but trust can control us. The Horizon's sensors suddenly picked up distant signals, the Raiders regrouping, analyzing, waiting. Elias knew they would return. And when they did, the battle would be more intense. But now he felt something shift inside him. He was no longer just protecting passengers. He was guiding beings who could reshape worlds. In the following hours, Elias worked closely with the sisters. He helped Lyra focus, teaching her to direct energy carefully, using concentration instead of instinct. Saris guided her, correcting small mistakes, warning against overreach. The ship became their training ground, each maneuver, each exercise strengthening their control. It was slow, careful work. Sparks of energy flickered across the deck. Lights danced unnaturally. But with each passing hour, the sisters' abilities became more precise, more deliberate. Elias could feel the difference, the energy no longer wild and threatening, but focused like rivers channeling through a dam. By nightfall, the Horizon had transformed from a small exploration ship into a vessel pulsing with controlled energy, guided not by fear, but by trust and teamwork. The sisters looked at Elias with gratitude, their previous wariness slowly replaced by respect. Elias glanced at the stars beyond the viewport. The galaxy was vast, filled with unknown threats and dangers. But for the first time he felt ready, not because of his ship, not because of weapons, but because of the choices he and the sisters had made together. Whatever comes next, Elias said quietly, we face it as one, not as captives, not as weapons, but as a team. Saris nodded. Then we will see if humanity's trust is strong enough to guide what the galaxy fears most. Lyra smiled faintly, the glow in her, hands steady. We'll try, together. And for the first time since they had been freed, the sisters looked not like prisoners, not like threats, but like beings who could shape their own fate, and perhaps the fate of the galaxy itself. The Horizon moved through space like a silent shadow, carrying its small crew toward an uncertain future. Captain Elias Grant sat at the helm, his hands steady on the controls, but his mind raced. The sisters, Lyra and Saris, were no longer frightened children. They were powerful beings, capable of bending energy and matter, and yet they were still learning control. The next encounter with the raiders could test their limits, and Elias knew it. "Captain," Lyra said softly, "I feel them coming again. The raiders, they won't stop." Elias nodded without turning. "Then we'll be ready. We've trained, we've focused, and we've learned. We can face them together." Sarah stood behind him, arms crossed, her gaze distant. "It is not enough to fight. You must guide them, human. That is why you are here. Your choice will decide if we remain a danger, or become something the galaxy can respect." Elias took a deep breath, his heart pounding. "Then we do this my way. We fight, but we do not destroy unnecessarily. We protect life, even theirs. Even the raiders if we can." Hours later, the raiders appeared, moving faster than before. Their fleet was larger this time, organized, prepared for retaliation. The first energy blast struck the Horizon's shields, rocking the ship violently. Elias gritted his teeth and maneuvered carefully, weaving between the incoming attacks. Lyra's hands glowed, her fingers weaving streams of energy to strengthen the shields. Saris guided her, speaking calmly, correcting small mistakes. Together they stabilized the ship's defenses, their power flowing through it like a living force. Elias watched, amazed, and yet cautious. One raider ship broke formation and targeted the Horizon directly. Elias realized this was no ordinary attack. They intended to capture or destroy the sisters. He shouted to the sisters, "Focus on them, but control your strength. We don't want to hurt the wrong people." Lyra's eyes narrowed, concentration etched on her face. Energy arced from her hands toward the raider ship, wrapping around it in a controlled surge. The shields bent, the engines sputtered, and the ship was disabled without exploding. Elias exhaled slowly. Sarah stepped forward, adding her strength to the network of energy. The remaining raiders faltered, confusion spreading among them. They had expected chaos, uncontrollable power, but what they saw instead was precision, discipline, and control. The raider commander's voice cut over the comm channel, strained and furious. "Stop this madness. You cannot control them. Release them now." Elias ignored the warning, keeping his focus on the sisters. "You're learning to control your power. That is what matters. Not fear, not war. Control. Trust in each other. Trust in yourself." Lyra's hands stopped glowing violently. Instead, the energy flowed calmly, bending only where intended. Saris mirrored her, reinforcing the network without overreaching. Together, the sisters were no longer wild forces. They were guided weapons, disciplined and precise. The raiders hesitated. Their attack slowed, then stopped. The commander's voice came again, but this time there was caution mixed with fear. "Human, you have changed everything. The sisters, they obey." "How?" Elias leaned forward, voice steady. "Because I believe in them. I trust them to make the right choice. That is why humanity is strong. Not because of weapons, not because of fleets, but because we trust, we guide, and we stand by our choices." The raiders retreated one by one, their fleet breaking formation. The Horizon was left alone in the darkness, but the weight of what had just happened pressed on Elias's shoulders. They had survived, but barely. The sisters' power had been immense, and if misused, it could have destroyed everything. Lyra sank into her seat, exhausted but smiling faintly. "We did it. We really did it." Sarah stood beside Elias, her expression softer now. "You have taught us more than any confinement ever could. Your human way. It works. Control through trust, not fear. That is why we are stronger now than we ever were locked away." Elias exhaled, finally allowing himself a small smile. "You didn't just survive. You learned something important. And so did I. Power without control is dangerous. But with trust, with guidance, it can change the world." The sisters looked at him with something like gratitude, and Elias felt the truth of the moment. They were no longer prisoners, no longer weapons of fear. They were allies, partners, and students of the one thing that had made humanity remarkable across the galaxy: choice, morality, and courage. The Horizon's engines hummed, carrying them onward. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, but Elias no longer felt the same fear he had felt before. With the sisters learning control and humanity's guiding hand steady, the galaxy seemed less hostile. One day the sisters might reshape worlds. One day they might face challenges even greater than the raiders. But now, Elias knew they would face them not as threats but as beings capable of making their own choices. And that was the difference that made humanity special. Lyra reached for Ceres's hand, squeezing it lightly. "We are free," she whispered. "Yes," Ceres replied, "and we are guided. That is what matters." Elias watched them, feeling a quiet pride swell within him. They had survived chaos, learned control, and found trust. And in the vast galaxy, that trust, and humanity's choice to believe in others, would ripple far beyond the horizon, leaving a mark no weapon could ever erase. The stars stretched ahead, endless and bright, and for the first time, Elias felt certain. They were ready for whatever came next.